students, counsellors, even maybe parents. So we do appreciate you all coming along, and we appreciate, hopefully, that most of this will be relevant to you in some capacity or not. There is an opportunity for you to ask questions throughout. We encourage you to ask questions, and my colleagues here, I'll introduce in a moment, we'll be doing our best to answer them, but we'll also have Q&A at the end, 10-15 minutes of Q&A, where we can field some of the most repeated questions and also answer any more that you might have. So thank you, and I'll just move to the next slide and give you an idea of who you're actually listening to today, kind of. I say kind of because there's a couple of changes on here. So my name's Ian Harris. I represent Northumbria University, up there in the top right, northeast England. And then in northwest of England, we have Lancaster University, who is Kirsten, but this evening, we have Tom. So we're very privileged to have Tom with us. He's great. And then moving down the coast and a little bit inland, still in the northwest, we have Manchester University, University of Manchester, and this is Raluca. She's part of a team, a few based in the UK, a few based in the US. And then last but not least, Amy Jones from the University of Sheffield, so a little bit more central England. So there are our details. Obviously, we'll circulate those as we progress, but this is who you'll be hearing from today. And what you'll be hearing from us will be this. So this is all very light touch. This is really just to give you a little bit of an insight into what you should be thinking at this stage in the process. If all of a sudden someone's come to you and said, I want to study in the UK, or you're sitting there thinking, actually, maybe I do want to leave the US. Maybe now is a good time. I'm not saying why that might be, but perhaps it might be for you. And so what we're going to do in doing that is we're going to set the scene, give you a bit of an overview of higher education in the UK. Obviously, we're exploring England, but there are other countries within the UK landscape. Then Raluca's going to talk through finding the right fit. So is the UK a good choice for you as a student or your students? And then she's going to move to Tom, who's going to talk about how it all works. So degree structures and the application process, very light touch. And then Amy's going to talk through what's in a UK degree, so closer look at the academic and social experience for students. Then come back to me, so thinking beyond study, post-study options and some useful tools. And then a little bit of a taster of who we all are, and then coming back to Q&A at the end. So hopefully you'll be with us throughout. So starting off, so higher education in the UK. So we talk about the UK, but obviously there's 4 countries that make up the UK, which sometimes can be quite a shock to some of the students that we speak to. We're not just a big place called London. And the UK is diverse in many ways. And it's a great place in terms of that diversity. And that diversity brings different devolved governments and a fantastic diverse education experience for students. So in the UK, there are over 160 universities, only 5 of which are private. So the majority there are public universities. And that makes a big difference in terms of the fee structure, and also how we're accountable in terms of what we say we do, how we do it, and the information that you can access, which we'll talk through in this presentation, about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and you can really help inform that decision. So we've been delivering higher education for many years. The oldest formed in 1096, which will be, of course, no surprise to you in terms of it being Oxford. And there's been significant growth since then across the country in terms of the higher education provision. Now, within the structure of higher education, there's quite a lot of mixed terminology, in particular around the groupings of universities. And you may come across these, the Russell Group, civic universities, post-92s. So what does that all mean in terms of the context of your research and experience? So the Russell Group is sometimes more closely associated or seemingly closely associated with the Ivy League. And that's not necessarily true, because the premise of the Russell Group is fundamentally around research. It's about how universities work and inform government policy and science and various other means in terms of the economics, etc. So it's seen as the leading group of universities. There's around 26 universities, 2 of which are with us today, and I'm sure they'll let you know who they are as we progress through the presentation. Civic universities, commonly known as Red Bricks, and then post-92s. Northumbria University is a post-92 university. We still have heritage which goes back to the late 19th century, but we were a collection of vocational colleges, expertise in nursing and teaching, and then have expanded since then. And the post-92s is essentially referring to when these former colleges could award degrees. Across the UK, there's two main undergraduate systems, and we'll go into a little bit more detail as we progress through the presentation in terms of what that actually means in terms of the educational experience. But the key points are, there's a 3-year major route for England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and a 4-year major route for Scotland, which is more commonly associated with the US system. Now, regional strengths do play into this research for students looking at what might be out there. And I think it's important to appreciate that how diverse the UK is over such a small geographical space, and how that can influence the institutions, their specialisms across different subject areas. And no one subject, although the same in name, may be the same in the experience as a result of those geographical and economic factors. So quick common misconceptions that we often get, and I already talked about the UK being much more than just London. The other aspect is international studies only for the highest achieving and wealthiest students, and that's just not true. It's a very diverse population. We have students from all over the world, from all kinds of economic and academic backgrounds, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail about what actually that means in terms of the cost and the kind of academic student profile that we're looking for. So all of that will be revealed as we progress through the presentation. Studying in the UK doesn't offer as much choice. Again, not true at all. There's a huge breadth of choice, both in location of university, both in subject, both in delivery as well. So there's lots of things to consider, and again, we will go into a little bit more detail as we progress. Often we get students, parents who are debating whether a student who comes to the UK, England in particular, and gets a degree in 3 years, how can that be comparable to what they would get from the US in a 4 or sometimes even 6 years of college education? Well, we are living in a much more globalized world, as we all know, and that kind of international profile and experience is really well sought by many of the big corporations. And towards the end of the presentation, we're going to show you some data about how you can actually see where students, graduates from the US, educated in the UK, are now working. So hopefully through this presentation, you're going to get a real sense of the research tools that are available to you. And the first part of that will be Raluca, who will now talk through the best bit.
So, hello everyone. Good evening, in case you're in the UK for some reason. I'm going to go through a few details around how to find the right fit of university. So I know my colleagues already mentioned that we have quite a mixed audience tonight. So if you're a student, if you're a counselor advising a student, or if you're a parent really looking at options internationally, there are a few things that you need to consider when looking at universities in the UK. So some of these are around the academic profile of the institution, and my colleagues will address this in terms of where you'll find those resources and how to do your research. But one of the key things when looking at the institution that you're picking is whether the research they're producing or the degrees that they're offering are what you are looking for and what you basically hope to help you with in your career moving on. So the academic profile of that institution is quite important in making you decide whether you would want a research intensive university, a more practical university, and also the courses that they offer. Do they focus more in STEM? Do they focus more in social sciences? But it would help narrow down the choices that you have available to you. A couple of other points here to consider whether the UK in general is a good choice, but also the institutions that you're looking at, whether they're a good choice or not, is the type of learning style that you as a student have, or counselors or parents advising students. Think about their learning style and their strengths and weaknesses. In the UK, most universities have quite place quite an importance on independent studying and independent learning. So you will find that with a lot of universities in the UK, the teaching style is to have fewer contact hours, which means less hours spent in the classroom and more time spending doing independent research, group work, project work as well. So does that work with the learning style of the student you're advising? Does that work with their strengths and weaknesses when it comes to their academic performance? And then outside of that, so outside of all this wonderful thing about studying and the academic side of things, you also need to think about outside of the classroom, what does that university offer in terms of the social experience, the student experience, and the location as well? It's quite an important point. So when you're thinking about the right fit, you will also see with UK universities, it tends to be more about the course than it tends to be about the university, even though both these sides are quite important. So when you're looking for a particular course, so ideally you will know what you want to study, you would be looking at whether those entry requirements for the courses would match your profile as a student, whether they offer opportunities for additional development. Perhaps you want to add a study abroad year or a semester, or maybe you want to do an internship. Those are all important aspects that you would need to look at and consider when you're picking your course. Outside of all of those things, which obviously are important while you're studying, also look at the university that you're picking and whether that university's personality would match your own as a student or would match the student that you're advising. Are they in the location that you would be interested in? Are they a campus university, a city university, the type of extracurricular activities that they offer? Those are all important factors that you would need to research and look into. Outside of all of this, another key point would be obviously the cost of attending. So we've put together here a little estimate for our, from our colleagues for Northumbria. You'll see that on your screen. Hopefully it's not too small. But one of the key points to look at when it comes to the UK, and we think that UK universities are actually quite cost effective, especially compared to some US institutions. Tuition fees are quite competitive, and the key point to take from here is also the fact that the standard UK degree length is 3 years. If we compare that to the standard degree length in the US, which would normally be 4 years, you're already technically saving 1 year of tuition fee. We all know that sometimes in the US, students don't graduate on time, which would mean potentially 5 years, 6 years of tuition fees. In the UK, that's not the case, in the sense that the degrees are structured in a way that ensures that students would graduate on time, obviously, except if they fail. But outside of that, the structure would aid students in graduating on time. Outside of that, of course, you're also considering the living costs and which are associated usually with the location of your university. So when it comes to the visa estimate, which normally would mean that the UK government advises you should have this amount of money per month to have a decent living while you're a student. The UK government estimate is around £1,000 per month for students outside of London for 9 months, which is the usual undergraduate academic year. Now, you will also find that some locations, when you do your research, actually have lower living costs than that government estimate. So you will find that the living costs in the UK are quite affordable. Outside of that, you also can look at scholarships. Various universities would offer different types of scholarships. We all publish that information on our scholarship pages, on our international student pages, and it's quite important to check those because more often than not, you will find that sometimes you will get automatic scholarships based on your results. So some institutions offer tuition fee discounts as scholarships for high academic entry results. So IB scholarships, some scholarships are also offered to encourage students from particular countries to apply to those universities. So you might actually find scholarships for North America students or scholarships specifically for US students. Outside of the standard tuition fee discount offered the scholarships at universities in the UK, you will also find that some offer potentially living cost scholarships, so accommodation bursaries or even meal plan scholarships that might help students with their costs while at university. And all of that is great, but another key point to take away from this presentation is the fact that most UK universities are actually FAFSA approved. So students and parents can use their FAFSA student loans and parent loans to fund their education at UK institutions. We are also quite happy to accept other forms of funding, whether that's independent loans from particular banks that would lend to education or various payment plans or even bursaries like the GI Bill. We're all quite happy to accept various payment plans that are designed to help students attend university. So if you take the estimate that we've put for you on the screen and then compare with some of the information that you're hearing from potentially US universities that you're targeting, I think you will find that the UK is becoming quite an affordable and interesting option to look at. So moving forward from my slide, hopefully I haven't bored you too much with the economic aspect of this. My colleague Tom's going to touch on degree structures and the UCAS application.
Thank you very much. Okay, so looking at the degree structures that we have available, so the first determining factor will be where you choose to study. As we mentioned at the start, if you choose to study in England, Wales, or Northern Ireland, a typical undergraduate degree will last 3 years. Whereas if you choose to study in Scotland, a typical undergraduate will last 4 years. Generally, studied at full-time, master's degrees would be an additional 1 year to achieve. When making the application, you'll notice that a lot of institutions for several courses will offer the option of applying for an integrated master's program. So this is where you apply for both the undergraduate and the master's program at the same time. If a student is successful in applying for this, then they've secured their place onto the master's degree, and there's no additional application process required. So this can be a really good option for students who are passionate and who are likely to go down that further education route. And they'll secure a place and they won't have to worry about writing an application once they arrive. Typically, there might be higher grade requirements for these integrated master's courses. However, students shouldn't be deterred by this because often if they don't reach the high grade requirements for the integrated masters, they'll still be offered a space onto the standard undergraduate format of the course. Two more things to highlight, options that might affect your degree structure. You'll notice that we've highlighted sandwich placement years and international years. Okay, so this will depend on the institution that you study at and the course that you study at. Sometimes these might be integrated within the 3-year structure, and maybe you'll spend your second year on an international or a work placement, but often it adds an additional year to the study and extends the undergraduate to being a 4-year degree where your 3rd year is spent on the placement or the international placement. I'd 100% recommend advising students to look into these options. There's a huge range of benefits for placement years. Obviously, there's the opportunity to potentially make connections, get a good idea of the careers to get into. We often talk about the struggle of being a graduate where you want a graduate role, but the graduate role requires work experience. And how do you get the work experience before you've graduated? Well, here's the perfect opportunity to get that. And I think we'll all agree that we often find students that come back from these placements can perform better in their final years owed to the skills that they've gained on that placement year. The same can be said for international opportunities as well. Even though coming from the US, you'll already be having an international opportunity. You know, if you're going to go and work in a medium plus sized organization, you will be working in a wide international environment. So the more experience of that you can get, the better. For me personally, I didn't have a year abroad, and it's probably my biggest regret at university. So now I tell everybody to consider it. I say, why would you not want a year in Australia if that was an option? And someone once responded, spiders, and I thought that was a fair point. So obviously it's everyone's choice, but yeah, they're the degree lengths available in the UK. Okay, so how would you then go about applying to a degree? So for all of us here and for the vast majority of institutions in the UK, the best way to apply to us is through UCAS. UCAS is an application system which consolidates the application into one manageable place. The student can then apply to 5 different institutions through UCAS. The main things to be aware of, the main deadlines to be aware of, would be October, where applications close for Oxford, Cambridge, and any institutions offering courses in medicine, dentistry, or veterinary science. The deadline for the rest of the institutions and all of the remaining courses would be January. Okay, we do still accept applications for a while after this deadline, but this is the deadline that we can say all applications will be given fair assessment. No places on courses will be given out before this January deadline. So as long as you submit your application before then, you'll be given equal consideration along with the other applicants. We'll still welcome applications after that until the courses are full, but that's the risk. Once the courses are full, we will no longer be able to accept applications. You can also apply to courses directly. You'll have to check in on the institution that you're applying for and the courses that you're applying for, because that option will vary institution to institution. But yeah, our preferred method would certainly be UCAS for applications. Okay, great. And then what do we look at on the UCAS form? What are we looking for in terms of the applications? So we'll look at your predicted grades, and that will give an impression of whether we can make an offer to the student, whether we think they're able to reach the academic standard that we require for the university. We'll look at personal statements, we'll look at a teacher reference, and we'll also look at the personal information that's held on UCAS. To give you an impression from an admissions officer point of view, I'm always saying that it seems like admissions are trying to stop you from getting into university and that you have to try to fight your way past them to get a place on the course. Thankfully, that absolutely is not the case. If you're a strong student and you're passionate about a course, then we absolutely want you to be on the course studying with us. So as long as you're able to demonstrate that through your academic achievements and through explaining your interest in the course and evidencing your preparedness for the course in your personal statements, then you stand a very good chance of being accepted onto a course. That's all for me from now, but I'm going to hand over to Amy to give you an impression of tips on how to research for universities and what to expect of student life at UK universities.
Thanks so much, Tom, and hi everybody. And yeah, and just to build on what Tom was saying there, one thing that's quite different about admissions in the UK to the US is that we do just look at students' applications, so their grades and their personal statements, so their passion and enthusiasm and interest in the subject. So we don't have what you refer to as demonstrated interest in the US. So we would love to meet your students, or you if you're a student, if we get back to the US sometime soon, and we're always happy to advise you and help you, but we're not going to help you get in. So it really does come down to the qualifications that you're taking and also the statement that you provide us. So that is a little bit different to the US. So some useful resources that you guys can look at to help you find out more about different courses, compare them, advise students, or look for yourself as well. UCAS itself is a really rich resource. There's lots of really useful information on there. There are video guides to writing personal statements, lots and lots of useful resources to look at. There is something called tariff points or tariff scores that can be a useful way to check what the entry requirements are for different courses. Because one thing that you will notice is that each university's entry requirements will be slightly different, and within that, each major will have slightly different entry requirements as well, which can be confusing. So UCAS will tell you what the entry tariff is for each individual course, and on there you can map different international qualifications and what the tariff is for comparison. So that can be quite a useful guide to give you an idea of the kind of level that that course is looking for. It also has a really good search function, so you can search all UK universities and find out which ones offer a specific course, for example. Discover Uni is another really rich resource. It's independent, hosted by the government, and again covers all UK universities, compares them using different metrics, so you can kind of rank universities different ways. So another really useful website to look at and use as well. There are lots of different rankings, and I think something that was touched on earlier, because most of our universities, or the vast majority of our universities, are public, there is a lot of quality assurance that goes on. So you can be assured, if you're at a UK university, that the teaching and research is independently quality assured regularly. So we have the Teaching Excellence Framework and the Research Excellence Framework, for example, and you can check how universities are scored on those. For the Teaching Excellence Framework, you can look exactly down to individual academics, how their research is ranked, and for the teaching, you can look at how well their teaching is ranked as well. If you're thinking about more vocational courses, there are obviously relevant websites for that. And for the health sciences area, the NHS has some really useful information as well in terms of career routes, the types of qualifications that they're looking for, and the additional things you might have to do to enter a course that's related to medicine, for example. So NHS, I'm sure you're all familiar, but is our National Health Service here in the UK. And then finally, and probably most importantly, you have us, and we are a really, hopefully, useful resource. And we do encourage you to come to us and ask us questions, and we will always try to help. And if we're not the right person, we'll always try and put you in touch with the correct person as well. So do, now you've seen us and heard us talking and have our details, please do come to us and we will always try to help you. Thanks, Raluca. So yeah, university rankings can be a really useful way of looking at different universities and courses. However, they do vary quite a lot. So I think they're very useful, but you have to be a little bit thoughtful and do a little bit of critical thinking about how you use them. So the different ranking bodies will have different focuses and use different criteria to rank universities, and they'll weight things differently. So some universities are some rankings are particularly interested in green issues. For example, one ranking looks at how environmentally friendly the university is. I won't name names of which one. Others will look more at student satisfaction, for example. So you can get very different results depending on the ranking that you look at. So there's an example here for economics for this year. So looking at the exact same course in two different rankings, you can see that you get very different results. So in The Guardian, you'll see that Nottingham Trent comes out at 7th and LSE 26th. However, for the complete university guide, LSE is 5th and Nottingham Trent is 39th. So clearly they are weighting criteria differently and using different criteria. So it is worth doing a little bit of research into why and how they are done. They will use things like student satisfaction, staff-student ratio, and if you're thinking about student satisfaction, there are a number of student satisfaction surveys that you can look at as well, which rather than being a ranking of metrics, actually tell you what students think of the course themselves. So yeah, so do look at all these different things when you're figuring out which universities to shortlist. So what's a UK degree actually like? So apart from Scotland, which Tom touched on, tends to have a more general first year and then you kind of specialise in your major, the rest of the UK becomes quite specialised right from the start. So what I would say is that if you have students or you are a student that knows what you want to study, so you love mechanical engineering, it's all you've ever wanted to do, you want to go and get a job in a Formula One team in Europe, this is your passion, you never want to take a history class again, then this could be a good option for you, because from year one you're going to major specialize in mechanical engineering right from the outset, and that's pretty much all you're going to study if that's what you want to do. So for those students it can be a really good option, because if they're passionate and they know what they want to do, they can specialize straight away and knock a year off the length of their degree. For the students who are less sure, they want to try a few things and then kind of specialise, it might not always be the right fit. However, we do have courses that offer complementary subjects together. So we have dual honours courses or combined honours courses. So for example, you could study mechanical engineering with French, and that might be because you have your language already and you want to keep that going. If a course is with, it's usually that the mechanical engineering part will be 60 to 75% of the course, and the French bit, so the with bit, will be the smaller element. So it's like a minor, a major minor. If it's an and, so it's mechanical engineering and maths, it means that you'll be doing 50% of each subject pretty much, and you'll get a degree that covers both areas. There are sometimes triple subject honours as well. So a popular one, for example, would be politics, philosophy and economics, commonly referred to as PPE. So that opportunity to specialise is kind of something that's different to the US system and is really popular with a lot of students, but not right for everyone, we do understand. There is a really wide range of subjects available. So the traditional subjects you might expect, like history, biology, English, etc. But there are some more kind of quirky courses, and this will be the title of the degree from day one as well. So ethical hacking, a really interesting topic. So ethical hackers are the ones that deliberately go and try and hack systems for the aim of helping governments, etc., avoid less ethical hackers. And then things like Viking and Old Norse studies, really specialised courses that students can pick amongst the more mainstream courses as well. Another slight difference to the US system, it's quite a big difference actually, is that there are professional courses that you can specialise and study right from undergraduate level. So things like medicine, dentistry, law and architecture, these you can study straight from high school. So it kind of freaks students out sometimes when they hear this, but our medicine degree, students start this from high school at 18. They don't have to do another degree and apply later. There are considerations about professional practice back in the US if you're looking at these as an option, but it is a very different system to the US. Thanks, Raluca. Okay, so what's a UK degree made up of? It's usually a complementary mixture of learning styles. So like the US, there will be lectures. These tend to be large group lectures. And they'll be focused on that particular subject, and they'll be led by a professor usually, so an academic member of staff. They'll be complemented by seminars usually for most subjects where that's a smaller group. Sometimes they will be student-led discussions and participation and dissent is encouraged. So even if that's led by a professor, students are encouraged to question and challenge the professor. So, you know, it is important that students show critical and independent thinking and actually participate in seminars. Tutorials are a really nice element of the UK system. So we have tutorial system where small groups will meet with an academic member of staff, so a professor, regularly throughout the entire degree course. They might discuss a specific topic or a piece of work that they're working on at that moment, but that tutor does become a very sort of constant contact and a first point of contact for issues and questions throughout the degree. So it's a really nice system. I would say there's quite a lot of direct contact with academic staff in the UK system, which is really appreciated by students. For the more practical courses, as well as that, you'll have practical work, field trips, laboratories, studio time, workshops as well. So it's a real mixture of learning styles that complement each other. And another slight difference to the UK is that there's much more emphasis on self-directed study. So students are responsible much more for their own learning. That's not to say that they're not supported. There is so much support available in many, many different shapes and forms, but there is an expectation that students will go away and do independent reading. They will manage their own time a little bit more. And the assessment kind of reflects that. So unlike the US, where there tends to be regular quizzes, maybe every few weeks, most modules or classes or courses will be assessed at the end of each semester, whether that be by a piece of coursework or an exam. So it is a slightly different learning style to the US as well. And I mentioned the tutor system. That personal tutor system is really appreciated by students, and that's a really important relationship that they do build up throughout their time at university. Tom touched on this. Not every course will offer this, but a lot of courses in the UK will offer options for a placement year. So that's usually related to the subject. So mechanical engineering, you would go and work in an engineering company for a year, for example. And they might also offer the opportunity for a year abroad during the degree. And also Tom did mention the integrated masters. So that is a really attractive route for some students. So an MEng mechanical engineering is a 4-year degree, the end of which you've actually already achieved your masters. So 4 years, 1 degree, no need to reapply, and you actually graduate with your masters at the end. And I think I'm handing back to Ian now. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Amy. So yes, this is something that probably seems a long way off at the moment. Certainly some of the biggest challenges that are faced for American students considering studying in the UK is that first part about choosing a major. And we've obviously talked in a lot of detail about how that can be made up and the options there. And it is still a good time to think about what considerations they might have post-study. And there's been some developments recently in terms of UK government policy, which is worthwhile sharing now. It may be a long way off, and we know that governments sometimes like to change their mind, but still, at the moment, students coming in can take advantage of the graduate immigration route, which was formerly known as the post-study work visa, allowing students once graduated to stay in the UK for 2 years to seek work and to look at opportunities and to stay in the UK if they wish to. So that's a fantastic opportunity that we want to promote. At this stage, it may well be a long off, but it's something to consider. The whole alumni focus in the UK is very different, and we're going to talk about that in the next slide. But the other thing that is an integral part of the UK education provision is industry-led teaching. It's about engaging with industry, and we get a lot of entrepreneurs from that engagement who have their own ideas, who want to set up their own businesses. And the other options for students who you may think of students who'd be very suitable for this is a startup visa, a 2-year visa where applicants can develop any of their ideas that they have, whether it's through the university or through a recognised business which has a history and reputation, and who can provide these visas for students who may want to stay on and develop their own ideas. So there's some fantastic opportunities for students beyond their studies in the UK. So we talked about the opportunities for students studying particular programs and the rich availability of data, particularly through the Discover Uni, formerly known as Unistats. So this is some data pulled from that, and it's from our Design for Industry program at Northumbrian. It talks about the employment statistics, or where students are 6 months after they've graduated from this particular major. Now, this is available for every university and every major, and you can access this data and you can see where students are. So there's a pool of students who universities have to collect data from in terms of their current status. So this breaks down whether they're in full-time professional employment, whether they're seeking work, or whether they are in further education. And then it lists the type of jobs that those students are available if they have provided that information. And there's a couple of points here. Obviously, the availability of this data is one, but also the range of professional employment that students have gone into, not necessarily limited by the very focused nature of the qualification. And that's something that we do get certainly from parents asking, well, if my son, daughter, or if a student is looking to go down a very focused major route and educational experience, does that mean that they've closed doors elsewhere in other industries? And absolutely not. We talked about the nature of a transferable degree and the international reputation you get from studying in the UK, and that allows and opens doors in many different industries. The next piece of data available to you all is to go on LinkedIn, find the university's LinkedIn profile, and this is an example from the University of Manchester, which has a huge wealth of alumni networks through LinkedIn. And what you can do using this is seek where graduates are within a particular country. In this example here, we focused obviously on the US, and you can see all of the alumni of Manchester, University of Manchester, and the businesses and organisations that they work for. So huge global brands there. And using this network, we encourage students to not only look at the data that's available to them, but also reach out. There may well be someone very close to them that's University of Manchester graduate, and they could maybe start a conversation about a common theme that they have. And we, US nationals, North Americans, are very proud of our alma mater, very different to where we are. So please do access that pool, that resource. It's invaluable. And just to emphasize that, here's an example of actually Sheffield's, one of Sheffield's chapters. We do have networks, we do have chapters, we have ambassadors, and we do a lot of events across the states. So please do look out for them. As I said, we're not as passionate perhaps as our North American friends, and it's always very interesting seeing the bumper stickers and the hoodies. We don't have any of those. Well, you can get them certainly, but you wouldn't see me in one, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a great network to tap into, and we can encourage and we can make those links for students who are interested in finding out a little bit more about that opportunity. Okay, so pulling this all together, hopefully you've stayed with us on this journey. Where we are now is just a little bit of a brief overview of each of our institutions. We are a consortium. There's 4 universities. I know some of the audience have actually had the pleasure of coming on our fly-in. which we had to unfortunately cancel this year, but we hope to run again in May next year. And that's a fabulous opportunity to get a real flavour for what all of our campus and universities are like. But we all have similar features. We've talked about FAFSA accreditations. What we haven't touched on, and I think we'll probably leave to seeing some of the questions that have come through about test requirements and standardised test requirements. But we all have a very open, transparent academic requirements that you can find on our website. And then we'll talk about what we actually look for in a typical US candidate. We all have university managed accommodation, and we guarantee university accommodation, certainly for the first year of study, and this will be single occupancy bedrooms, very close to, if not on campus, depending on the locations of the university. We're all very well supported with Student Union, which have a wealth of options for students, as you've heard about, as well as well-being and pastoral and health support that is available to students. Every student will have an individual tutor, irrespective of what major they are studying. And two things here that I like, but are still questions that we get asked frequently. Will I need a car to be able to access the city to get from my accommodation to my lectures? Absolutely no need for a car at all. We are very accessible cities, relatively small compared to what you'll find in the US and what students are used to. And we are all obsessed with how close we are to London. So even Newcastle, which is the furthest and most northern city in England, is still a 2-hour, 45-minute direct train into London. So as you can see, it's very easy to get around the UK and no need for that. Okay, so I'll continue talking. Northumberland University, located in the city of Newcastle upon Tyne. So we are a top 400 global university. We're a top 30 UK university, and we're UK's top young university in the world. Now, all of a sudden, you understand what these rankings mean in the context, and you can go and explore this in a little bit more detail, hopefully with the kind of tools that we've referred to today. Lots of universities have lots of different accolades, and we're all pitching ourselves about who's the best in various accolades. So it's important that you understand how that relates to the student's course interest or university interest or city interest. We are a small city geographically, but we have a very large student population. So 1 in 6 people in the city is a student. And that's why we have this reputation as being a very friendly and welcoming city for students. We're also ranked in the top 20 safest UK universities. And that's a feature of the size of the city itself. You can walk east to west, 20 minutes. And it's a very small, compact city. And all of our accommodation is within 20 minutes walk of the campus and the city centre. So our typical entry profile is a 3.0 GPA, and we will consider SAT or ACT or APs. And there's lots more information specifically about that on our website, so I won't go into a lot of detail. We have approximately 200 US students on campus. That's growing all the time. The majority are graduate, but we do have a growing number of undergraduate. In particular, our I2I Football Academy partnership for any of your students, male, female, who are interested in a full degree alongside a professional football coaching and playing experience. Our tuition fees are around $20,500 a year, with living costs around $13,000. We also are the only UK university to offer Raise Me Micro Scholarship, and we also have the Global Scholarship. So we've already talked about the difference in scholarships and funding that's available to students. And again, information is available on our website. Thank you.
Thanks. So my name's Tom, and I'm representing Lancaster University, which is based in the northwest of England. From an academic perspective, we're very proud that we're currently ranked in the top 10 of the 3 major UK league tables, which is a relatively young institution. We're very proud to have made that progress so quickly and climbed the league tables. For employability, at the moment we're ranked 3rd in the UK for graduate level employment, and we've been named the International University of the Year by the Times and the Sunday Times, all of which we're very proud of. In terms of what it's like to be a student at Lancaster, you can see from the image in the centre that we're a campus-based university, and we're in a very green location. So we suit people who maybe want a bit more of a relaxing experience to concentrate on their studies. We are next to the city of Lancaster, so you have a bit of the best of both worlds there. We really take pride in our campus, in the facilities, the academic facilities for you to use, and also the social facilities. The campus itself is divided into 9 different colleges, so you'd apply to join one of those if you came to study with us. This is your family while you're at Lancaster, and for me, while I was studying, was a huge advantage. It made it very easy to settle in and make friends, and it also made for a really good competitive environment between the colleges in terms of inter-college sports competitions and college socials and things like that. Our location, we're within day trip distance of 3 beautiful national parks, so it's an amazing location to see the picturesque British countryside. We know accommodation is really important, and that's been reflected in our accommodation being voted the best student halls in the UK 8 times in the past 10 years. From a sporting perspective, obviously we're very lucky to have a huge amount of green space for sports. We have a sports centre which opened as I was leaving, so probably about 6 years ago now, and that's just been extended twice to include extra new facilities. So we do have a huge sporting scene on campus as well. But yeah, that's Lancaster. Thanks very much.
It's over to me now. Just a quick and brief presentation on the University of Manchester. We've been around since 1824, so we're one of the older universities in the UK. As we were all talking about rankings a little bit earlier, University of Manchester is ranked 27th in the world currently, and we are very proud to have been home to 25 Nobel Prize winners. In terms of the achievements that we're very proud of, the University of Manchester is the most targeted UK university by top employers. And we're very proud to have 2 Nobel Prize winners on our campus in our teaching staff. At the moment, they're teaching graphene applications, which I'm sure is very interesting for some of you, a little bit beyond me. I'm one of those people that did study PPE, actually. So in terms of the university, we are the largest campus-based university in the UK, home to 40,000 students. So quite different than the profiles of my colleagues speaking earlier. But that also means for us that we have the largest alumni community of any campus-based university in the UK. And we have over 8,500 alumni in the US across all states. So we're quite a large university in that aspect as well. One of the great things about the University of Manchester is that we are a campus university, but we're located in a city center. So when you think of Manchester, and you will probably hear me and my colleagues talk about the fact that it is the 2nd largest city in the UK, please don't imagine New York sizes. I think at best, at a push, we're maybe the size of Boston. But the great thing about it is the fact that you will have everything you need within walking distance, really. But also Manchester is a city. It's a very vibrant city. It was the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, feminism, vegetarianism, so loads of firsts in Manchester, and the university is within walking distance of the city centre. Manchester is also quite a student-focused city. We have 3 universities within the city boundaries, and then around the city of Manchester, you will find loads of other universities within bus distance, train distance, car distance as well. So we are quite student-focused. It's very vibrant, and you will find loads and loads of activities to do. The university has the largest students' union in the UK, obviously due to our size, but that also means that we offer loads and loads of activities. You will find a society for every possible thing you can imagine. I think at one point Manchester had a pillow fighting society. So you will find loads and loads of interesting things to do as a student on campus and loads of activities to be engaged with. I think one of the wonderful things about having so many things at your fingertips really is the fact that there are no requirements to join these activities whatsoever. If you find something that you're interested in, just sign up and go for it, see what happens. I myself actually joined the archery club at the beginning of university. I was terrible at it, but I made good friends. So it's just a good opportunity to experience new things. Being quite an international university with students from over 190 countries on our campus, you will literally find the world world in one place. So if there's a couple of things that I want you to take away from this presentation about the University of Manchester, it will probably be our academic pedigree, our breadth of activities, and also the fact that we look a little bit like Hogwarts. So that's pretty cool for students that are looking into that. So I'm just going to hand it over to Amy to talk about Sheffield.
Thanks, Raluca. Yes, last but not least, a little bit about Sheffield. So what you're probably realizing is that we are all just slightly different sizes and shapes and different quirks and personalities, and that's why it's really important to do the research to make sure there's no best university, but there's going to be a best university for you or your student, and that's what we want to help you find. So Sheffield, we are a World Top 100 university in the QS World Rankings, and we cover a really broad range of subjects, right from archaeology through to sort of medicine, engineering. Unlike Raluca, who did PPE, I did mechanical engineering, hence why it's always the first thing that comes to my head when I'm doing a presentation. So yeah, a really broad range of subjects. 99% of our research is recognised internationally or considered world leading. So we are a research intensive university, which has its advantages in terms of the access to laboratory facilities, and also you're usually being taught by people who are writing journal papers that are being cited around the world and potentially wrote the book that you're using in your course as well. We do have a really generous scholarship provision for undergraduate students. So we have undergraduate merit scholarships that are worth 50% of the tuition fee. So it is a very generous scholarship, and we do encourage all students to apply for those. Our Students' Union, this is the one where I'm going to say, I think we can say it's the best Students' Union in the UK because it has been voted the best by students for 11 years running now. So it is the really vibrant heart and soul of our campus. Like others were saying, there is pretty much every club of society available that you can imagine. My personal favourite at Sheffield is the Assassin's Guild, where members will get given a mission to assassinate other members in a pretend fashion. But I have been walking across the campus and seen someone dressed as a knight on a hobby horse on his way to assassinate someone. So there are lots of weird and wonderful, amazing societies for students to join, and it's a really great way for them to meet other people outside of their course. I think there's an important more serious side to a Students' Union. So a Students' Union is run by elected students, and it is very much a democracy, and they do lobby universities, so they are independent of the university to change. So our Students' Union is constantly lobbying us to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students and making sure we give them the best possible experience, and I think we must be doing that because we've been voted best for so many years. All of us have the advantage of the fact that because we are outside of London, it is considerably cheaper. So your FAFSA money will go a lot further if you do venture a little bit further north. So we do think it is worthwhile. Sheffield, we have about 28,000 students. So we're kind of a middle-sized university. And similar to Manchester, we're a city campus. So the campus is really compact. You can walk across it in 15, 20 minutes, and it merges into the city centre. And we are very much part and parcel of our city. We were founded by penny donations from local people. So we definitely have a strong connection to our heritage, our city, as well as a very international outlook, having students from over 150 different countries. In terms of our entry requirements, we're usually looking for a GPA of around 3.0 and then 3 SAT subject tests or APs, usually around the 600, 650, 5 or 6 level. And what you'll find is that different courses may ask for specific subjects as well, and that's true of all our universities because of the specialisation from year one. So for mechanical engineering, you'll find that they're looking for maths or even calculus, for example. And I think that probably is it from Sheffield, and we'll probably cover questions, I think, next. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you all, and thank you everyone who's attended. Just to reiterate that, so we have got a little bit of time for questions. I've tried to take a note of a few of the more pertinent questions that have come through, but we have been doing our best to answer them as they've come in with some quite amusing comedy answers as well. What I do want to highlight is that, as at the beginning, we are going to do a series of these. We're going to try and focus around a bit more detail about the application process. We're looking at maybe doing some workshops around writing a personal statement, writing a teacher's reference, which is all part of the UCAS application process for you guys, some sessions on funding, and we're also looking to get we've all got obviously US students studying with us, and we're looking to do a session delivered by our representative students from each of our universities. So keep an eye out on those emails as and when they come through, and please do sign up for them and promote to your students and parents. So just a quick overview in terms of our rules. It's just quick to highlight and some of the questions that have come through about the admissions processes, which we will talk to in a bit more detail. We are all recruiters, so we advise externally and internally in terms of students that we speak to, parents that we speak to, counsellors that we speak to. But we don't necessarily see the applications that are coming through. So we don't handle the applications that your students put in. They go through our central admissions teams, and then sometimes they will be siloed out to academic faculty specialists. But on the most part, it's done by our academic team, our admission team, sorry. We will inform those admissions teams, and we are happy to have dialogue with you if there's any questions about a particular student, or you want to make a point about the educational curriculum experience that student has had, their access to tests. And that leads nicely on to the question that's come up around standardized tests, and obviously the challenges that US students are facing at the moment in terms of accessing these, and how we are as institutions responding to that issue. I'm going to pass that question on to one of my colleagues. We have had this come up a couple of days ago. So Raluca, would you like to answer that in the first instance?
Sure, absolutely. So I think there's a few key points to take away from obviously the current global crisis, and how does that relate to testing at the moment. So one of the key things to address is the fact that all of us here and UK universities in general will show some flexibility towards what's going on at the moment. Some of us more than others, but it's just something to keep in mind. So moving on to the kind of standard response at the moment is the important part of the UK application process is the timeline in which we do all of this. So we work a little bit later than US universities, but also we operate on a conditional offer system, which means that at the point where you apply, ideally 15th of January before that, we look at your predicted grades, which is why it's important as part of the application process to list any tests that you are taking or considering taking or you're about to take, and the grades associated with those. We make a conditional offer based on those predicted grades, and that means that you have secured a spot at the university of your choice until your circumstances change. So what that means is that nobody's going to take that spot away from you until you've submitted your results and you have met the conditions of your offer. So in the sense of what's going on right now, when students not having access to standardized tests, we will be waiting up until late summer for the students to be able to take those tests and let us know their results. A key point here is the fact that in the UK, A-levels results don't come out until mid-August. So even if you are waiting until the summer to take those standardized tests, so APs, SATs, and so on, then you're probably going to be admitted and have your unconditional offer before A-level students even get their results. So that's, I suppose, one of the benefits of being able to take earlier exams and know exactly where you're standing with university. But again, if you are getting ready to take those tests and at the moment they're not available, that's not a problem. We will be waiting for those. Another thing that's quite different, and one of my colleagues has highlighted that before, we care about the result of that standardized test rather than whether you've taken the module in your high school or when you've taken that test. So I know some students take APs in their second, third year of high school. We will take those results into account when you're applying to university. So if you're a final year student in high school and you've already taken 3 APs, 4 APs, and you want to submit those to us as results, then we will absolutely be looking at those, and you might even be able to get your unconditional offer straight away. So there are certain things about this timeline on the basis of which we operate that would basically mean that we're hoping students would have the time to take those standardized tests that we're looking for throughout the year before they start their course. Obviously, at the moment, should the situation change and those tests are not available, then universities will start making decisions around that and potentially change the way we do admissions. I know, Ian, you might want to touch a little bit on what Northumbria is doing at the moment as well. But I think it's just important to keep in mind that there is time, and we're hoping that obviously the situation will get back to normal, but we will be waiting for those results.
Thank you. And rather than go into the details about our institution, please do get in touch with us individually if you do have any specific questions about individual students that this will have affected. I just want to, conscious of the time and the other couple of questions that we've had around combining majors and the makeup of our majors and the flexibility within a major if a student comes in on one track and then wants to change to another. So perhaps, Amy, you would be happy to answer that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So we do offer dual majors, so the things like I talked about, so the physics and maths, etc., but they will vary from one university to another, and it's not like you can just combine anything. So there will be specific tracks that are like I say, physics and maths or PPE. There is a little bit of flexibility sometimes in the first year, but very little, because the courses are so specialised from year one. Essentially, you're usually specialising in that major and you remain on that major. Even if it's a dual major, you will start on that dual major and usually remain on it. The example of myself where the flexibility can come in, I started, you might have guessed from what I said in my presentation, on a course that was mechanical engineering with French, and at the end of year one decided that the prospect of spending a year in France doing mechanical engineering in French was too scary, and dropped the French part, and that was absolutely fine. And then my major was just mechanical engineering. So there are these little bit of flexibilities in there, but it isn't as simple to switch as it is in the US system. So we do need to make you aware of that. And each university will have different combinations, and they won't be able to combine everything. So it is one of those where you do have to do that level of research from one institution to another. It still takes 3 years. It's not extra amount of classes, so you still take the same amount of classes. It's just the proportion of classes that are within each of those 2 subject areas. So for physics and maths, you'll just take half the number of classes in maths and half the number of classes in physics, rather than sort of doubling the amount of classes. And as was touched on earlier, the way we structure our degree programs is that you will complete your bachelor's within the specified time, unless you fail a class or something. So if there's a class you need to take, you will be able to take it. Classes don't fill up. We don't have situations where students can't get on a required class and end up having to take it, year 4, year 5 to be able to finish their degree. It's very structured. So you'll have classes you have to take in year 1 and you will be able to take them. There are classes that you have to take in year 2 and you will be able to take them. So it's not like the situation in the US where you're struggling to get, in a long line of students to get on that one class you need to be able to finish your degree program. So I hope that makes it a little bit clearer for everybody.
Great, thank you. We've actually fielded a lot of the questions that have come through during the presentation. So if you do have any last questions that you want to field to us, please do in the chat box. Otherwise, we will close this presentation and let you continue with your day. But we hope that you found it helpful. We will send some feedback round, and we'll send a recording of the presentation and also a copy of the slides. And do look out for follow-up emails. So thank you again, all of you, for joining us. We really do appreciate your time, and hope you've enjoyed it and hope you've got a better understanding about where you are in the process and how to start that process. So thank you all.